Good evening. How are you? This is John Flannery, and I'm back from a cruise to Canada and to Shangri-La. And so it's good to see the Dirt Road gang assembled again, even if it's virtually. Overlooking what has become America is really puzzling for a country that boasts it's the land of the free and the home of the brave, and where so many responsible people with so much apparent power do not use it to rebuff Trump, to fight back. And I mean, if there's a way to measure the energy, the deepest, darkest stains in our country would be the Congress. Consider the fact that with each gut punch from the felon Trump takeover, the response is more like, wow, did you see that? Wow. But no reaction. If somebody, grabbed somebody you cared about, you would immediately react. Usually people who are not normally known for being physical, that connection does that for them. And there are 100 examples of it. But how could you be immersed in our theory of constitution of equal rights before the law and react in silence to what Trump has done to this nation, to overthrow our Constitution, to diminish our right of voting, to declare us unequal, and to make it an offense, basically, if you do anything that might deter, discourage, defeat discrimination. Trump and his wicked band of traitors have been following a plan that we knew about in 2024. So no one can say, oh, I didn't know he would do that. That's so amazing. He's done all of these things, and they've been foretold, and they are known. The best historical example I can think of, and it's as large as this one. During anticipating World War II, there were negotiations between Great Britain and Hitler. And Churchill was very critical, saying that you shouldn't anticipate that any of these things will work. And he's told everybody repeatedly how he'd read Mein Kampf, which is Hitler's writings about who he was and what he planned to do. And because Churchill read it and no one else did, they never got what he was talking about. Now, when I was much younger, I read it as well, because I wanted to see if what they said historically was true. And it is. And Churchill, therefore, when he became the PM, the prime minister, he was able to attack it. We have a similar situation here. In 2024, the Republicans put together this program. And the program was about what they would do when they took over government. It's 1,000 pages long. And Democracy Forward has identified some of the objectives of the path from free to serf. In other words, you and I think without exception, are the people they seek to diminish. They want us constrained in our ability to take care of medical care, to have a job that pays enough. All these things so that, and they want to reduce the job opportunities so there's a demand for it, so you have a kind of serf. Now, this is not an exaggeration, and you can see all the data points from January to now, but here's the really terrible thing in terms of public responsibility. Here's a couple of their objectives. They plan policies to cut 220,000 jobs. Why would they want to cut jobs? Because if they cut jobs, then the demand for jobs mean people are prepared to take sacrifices to do those jobs. Wants to limit access to food assistance. Really? Can you imagine? We want people hungry? They want to roll back civil rights protections. We've seen that. They want to eliminate Head Start for 1 million children. That's what they wrote in 2024. Candidates pointed to this document and nobody read the damn thing. They want to stop efforts to lower prescription drug prices. What is the reason for that? They want us ill. They want us compromised. They want us weak. A bully wants to do that because he can't fight a fair fight and knows a fair fight is a vibrant, powerful man, woman, child, group. That's what he's trying to do. He's trying to subdue us before he has to load on more. Now, the 2025 Transition Project had a playbook for the first 180 days of the next administration. We're past that. And we sat on our asses for most of the time while he was doing this, acting as if all these things are disconnected and they're not part of a plan. And in defense, we had no plan. No plan. Nobody has sat down and figured out how to fight this. And, you know, it is amazing to me that we are living the realization of what Germany went through and how Hitler was made, and we're making Trump, and we're making his forces. Now, they've been moving toward the end of our republic. They have been shifting the money and the power in violation of our Constitution. Members of our Congress sit in comfy chairs muttering stuff that got them there. They don't want to be embarrassed by actually leading. Also, take Trump at his word. Retribution, vengeance, and his maggots will fall by the side of the road as well, because that's what happens when he gets power. He doesn't want anybody else. There have been benevolent despots. That's not Trump. There's nothing benevolent about this man. His denial of matters fair and right or science-based is terribly dangerous. Now let's go back to the Greeks. Plato warned us against men, quote, unable to count 1, 2, 3, or distinguish odd from even numbers, or is unable to count at all or reckon light and night and day, and who is totally unacquainted with the revolution of the sun and the moon and the other stars. Plato, late in life, realized by observation that he was afraid we would appear to be more like pigs than men. Carl Sagan said something that's important here. He said the consequence of scientific illiteracy are far more dangerous in our time. And so we are. We have leadership without heart, without soul, without mind, without excellence. I mean, take as an example something that's only happened today, as I understand it, although there's been talk about it before. Take away Rosie O'Donnell's citizenship. What kind of base man would do that? He had a private back and forth that would be comic if he wasn't so crazy and terrible and such a bore. And anyhow, she has American citizenship by her Constitution. Does it mean that he could defy her citizenship? He could violate the law again. Would anybody come to her aid? Would she find a court that would satisfy it? She's been interviewed specifically on this stuff, and she said, I'm going to become an Irish citizen, and I will stay here. And if my citizenship in America is successfully denied, then I don't want to be in that America. There are people who think that. When I was in Canada, they had a relief system for people who wanted to come to Canada. It was kind of funny that way. Now, as I speak, Trump is building an occupation force throughout the United States. Oh, it's not throughout yet. No, we'll just wonder at each one of these things, and the courts will allow them to happen or not, and they'll litigate, and he'll just stay there anyhow, ignoring the law. So we have an occupation force where? Well, LA was the start, DC was another, he's going into Oregon, he's talked about Chicago and New York. These are not small places. And what are these troops going to do? They're going to protect federal property, meaning the buildings that ICE has. So a demonstration near it could be electrified by these guys finding an incident there that required them to protect that building. That's right. Sandstone building, we're going to protect that thing. The it's very interesting that the justification for this, and it's not a legal one, but I'm going to mention it and then I'll talk about it. The justification for this is he's going to attack Antifa. Now, that's a word that doesn't correspond to an entity. That's a word that doesn't have any officers and so forth. That's a word that means against fascism. That is, against Trump as fascist. That's his objection. That's a terrorist group. When in truth, and this is the way everything Trump does, the truth turned upside down is that Trump is the terrorist, not people protesting the denigration of their rights as citizens to be treated equal before the law. Now, what is Trump aiming for? Well, 3 months ago, despite the fact we were put on notice what they were going to do, if you said martial law, they thought, that's ridiculous. That's never going to happen. No? Well, he's in these cities, and Oregon's going to resist it, and we'll see what the courts do, and we'll see, and this will be the turning point, I think. If the lower courts oppose it, but the Supreme Court allows it, then there is no law in America. And that cannot succeed. And what is the law? Posse comitatus is a principle that you may not use military force as a posse, to prosecute a crime. And the origin of this principle was to stop the use of armed forces for domestic law enforcement after the Civil War. Okay, are there exceptions? Yes. There's an Insurrection Act, and that is to suppress insurrections. We don't have one. In fact, we have peace in these places that he's occupying. But, every war or struggle that seems unique starts with a lie. Remember the Maine, there are a whole series of these things. The Gulf and Tonkin resolution, weapons of mass destruction, go on and on. And that's what Trump is doing here. Whatever the lie, the bigger, the more frequently it's told. And as long as he can keep a healthy minority of America there, he always has something that he can sort of use to pass on. And the Insurrection Act is to suppress insurrections, unlawful obstructions, combinations, and so forth, making it impossible to enforce federal law through regular judicial proceedings. Well, Trump's already running around all of those judicial proceedings. Now, in addition to taking over the entire government by perhaps force, he would be probably just pleased as punch to shut down our government entirely. And the Democrats and Republicans can't agree on a fair deal, in part because the Republicans have gone so conservative, whereas in the past they cared about our ability to survive and live and to prosper and to have freedom. Those issues are gone. The GOP, grand old party, gone, doesn't exist. Will it come back? There have been signals lately, when the First Amendment was on the table, that, there are some, but too little, too late. They had known this program from the beginning. What finally has gotten them upset? Maybe because they realize that when Trump gets wherever he's going, he won't need them. They won't be here. They won't have anything. So the House Senate leadership and the House and Senate leadership was scheduled to go to the Oval Office to meet with Trump. And they did. And my concern was that they pick a fight. We should pick a fight. And that may sound frivolous, but if you're not there to defend something, if it's not in you for the fight, then what are you doing? You just want to push it, but you don't want to actually accomplish it. And that seems to be the fear among these people. Now, but you need a counter to Trump denying what the Democrats propose, and this is good stuff, a medical corps. Trump wants to deny a medical corps. He wants to close rural hospitals. He wants to raise premiums, $4,000 a year. And so there can be no agreement if we won't accept those terms. And what the Democrats want to do is to put that forward. Now, what we have is the kind of standoff that is not stand by your guns. The Democrats need to have a spine. They need to say that we mean it. We are going to take this to the wall. But people who live in the gray area all the time and don't understand the absolutes and don't follow them, they're going to destroy our country. The House and Senate are the greatest failure. If somebody writes a book about the end of our Constitution, and will put it on those cowards on the Hill. Yeah, some have come out and spoken and so forth, but it's, 3, 4, 5? We need the entire Congress up in arms. This is more like Blazing Saddles. It was a comedy by Mel Brooks. He has a scene in it in which the trouble that a politician is having is surrounding him. Okay, Mel Brooks plays that politician, and he said, he runs around and says, "What are we going to do?" He says, "We got to fight for our phony baloney jobs." That's it. That is it. When you've forgotten the reason that you ran for office in the first place, then you're only thinking about succeeding yourself again and again, and you are long past having any principle by which you would shed your blood on the floor of the House or Senate in favor of preserving our Constitution. Patrick Henry said it at the beginning, and it doesn't exist now. Give me liberty or give me death. Rosie O'Donnell, in that short reference I made, that's what she's saying. She's saying, if America doesn't have liberty, I'm not missing anything. I'll be happy in Ireland. And she would become a citizen by descent by her grandparents. So what do we have? Well, the latest thing, which I think is a con job, not surprising, but let me explain it to you in my view of it. You may not agree. You have to be patient for peace. And we're not even near it. But we put on this scenario. Politicians do this all the time. They bring up an issue before Congress, and the groups divide. They raise a lot of money. They don't do anything, and they go away. Okay, that's one kind of scheme. This scheme is about Trump pretending to be a healer and who cares that there be peace and that people not die anymore. Okay? Now, so there's a proposal on the table. And the proposal is that a former prime minister of Great Britain will take over Gaza, okay? And Hamas won't be there at all. And Israel would defer to the Palestinian state that will be created there. And Trump said, Israel would have my full backing to finish the job of destroying the threat of Hamas if there is an agreement on this score. But he knows that Netanyahu doesn't want this. Netanyahu has spoken against the Palestinian state. Trump has said he's against the Palestinian state. But he's saying he's for this compromise. Really? Is he? This is a show. By now, maybe it's just we're so used to his blatant lies that we don't understand the subtle ones. And the subtle one here, or not so subtle if you actually read the terms. Hamas, for example, said it wasn't consulted on the latest proposal, which includes terms it has consistently rejected. I mean, consider the fact we're going to have a settlement of peace, but Hamas is not at the table, is not in a position to make any agreement or not. This agreement goes forward, you're not going to be part of the settlement. And the Palestinian state will happen down the road sometime after a period of years in time. Oh, well, it's vaporware. It's out there. It's not very serious. And, Israel has repeatedly rejected the notion of a Palestinian state. And a proposal that rejects Hamas would survive this resolution. So why would you make that agreement? And I think the answer is Israel counts on Hamas not wanting to agree, so it can pretend to agree, and then pretending to agree, and it gets rejected. Then what Trump said goes into operation, Israel would have my full backing to finish the job of destroying the threat of Hamas. Oh, that's good. Another war crime. Another war crime. You know, it's not that one could be immune to the enormous death that this war has caused. But consider the fact that this war has also killed women, non-combatants, children, destroyed culture and civilization. That it's resulted in a charge for Netanyahu and for the Hamas for war crimes in both directions. If there's going to be an imposed decision on the people, it has to involve something less than killing more children and everything else. Now, Netanyahu says this is for the hostages. Don't kid yourself. If these guys are going to go in to kill the remaining people without regard for how careful they do it, there won't be any hostages, meaning they'll be killed. I mean, how are they going to surgically do this? So, my final observation on returning from my short vacation is that our nation is at more of a crisis today that was unnecessary because so many ignored all the indications of what was going to happen and always scratched their heads saying, what did Trump understand? Trump is just a signing machine. These people are producing these documents he hasn't read, couldn't describe. You hear the kind of word salad that he presents when he's talking about these things. If they were upset with Woodrow Wilson when he had a stroke and said, oh, he wasn't serving when his wife and others were managing the government during the final days, that was a superior government compared to what this is. This government is a parrot, apparently for a whole bunch of people. They let him out at midnight sometimes, I think. So, for instance, he gets these signed documents and he signs them all the time and they pet him on the head. Then he comes out and blusters and fumes about escalators and, it's a shame and a disgrace. We are literally the laughing stock of the world as reflected by the laughter in the UN. That's not tolerable. That's not acceptable. People who go in for elective office, I think start with, say, three things that very much upset them. They're true believers. I don't know if it's most, but there's a large number of those people. Then you get to the Congress or the Senate, and you can't focus on those three things because they assign other things. And now you have 25 or 30, and maybe you're not interested in those. And as time passes, you can only cut so many ribbons and talk so much bullshit without accomplishing something to decide your life means anything. So they get to a point where there's just coming back again and again, coming here, and treating this really like a complicated board game. But it has real effects on the people of the world, the unanticipated errors of a Congress with inferior character. And that's where we are. This is worse than it was during Nixon. It need not be this bad, but it is. And we have to redouble our effort to kick them in the ass, those people who are not doing their jobs. And we have to do whatever we can. We have to do, as the people, what I think made the difference for Jimmy Kimmel. That is, that people pulled together in such a way and so many things happening that he stopped them in their tracks. And he paid a high price for it. And he had to pay a higher price because too few people in positions with a platform and power acted. And that's where we are. We can still do this. There are vectors of force and power and political correctness here that are in our favor. But there are other people that are the bulls in the china shop who don't give a shit about the china. They're going to smash everything because they come with that attitude. They're not here to be benevolent. They're not here to share the wealth. They're not here to give a hand up to somebody who needs it. They're here to hurt and to take their own if there's anything to be had. And today I saw a man carrying a flag and running through the streets with it. This is new kind of stuff. up in Canada, I saw somebody wearing a T-shirt that talked about the people coming to Canada for relief, and an American was wearing this shirt, and she said, "That's fine. Let them go to Canada. We get rid of them." So there's this attitude, and you may see it, and if we don't fight it, there becomes only one truth. That's the lesson of 1984 and all of those dystopic novels. That if you're not fighting it, you're losing. You're not in the argument, you lose the argument. You're not in the fight, you lose the fight. So that's what I have. I know this is not cheery, but I think it's spot on, or I wouldn't say it. So until the next time, I don't know if I'll be out walking, but I think I'm back enough that I'll be able to continue our daily visits. All the best. Bye-bye.